Good evening, VV Nation. My name is Ryan.
My name is Glenn.
And we've got a special presentation for you tonight. It's going to be a little bit different. You can see we're a little bit more relaxed. We're doing more of a podcast style.
Absolutely.
As you know, VV Nation, we were just in New York City, got to visit NASDAQ, Wall Street itself. And tonight, we're going to do a breakdown. Our CEO, Linda Royer, did a wonderful interview with Trade Talks. Glenn, do you want to speak a little bit about that?
It was a panel of professional women, which was an awesome interview, all talking about the stock market, what things are moving the stock market, the types of people, the trends of the stock market, and understanding what is needed once you invest in the stock market from an educational standpoint, from a community standpoint. There's even talk about from a broker standpoint. So I think it's a well-rounded interview of people who are known in the stock market. It was an awesome panel.
Definitely agree. I would say the panel is diverse with the three different companies represented, VectorVest being one of them. So if this is something that you're interested in, let's go ahead and get started.
Here we go.
Let's do it.
Welcome to NASDAQ Trade Talks, where we meet with the top thought leaders and strategists in emerging technologies, digital assets, the regulatory landscape, and capital markets. I'm your host, Jill Malandrino, and joining me on the desk at the NASDAQ market site is Linda Royer, CEO of VectorVest, Lule Demisi, CEO of the U.S. at eToro, and Bree Williams, Head of Practice Management at State Street Global Advisors. We're here to discuss how technology is reshaping investing by making markets and financial literacy more accessible. Ladies, it's great to have everyone at the table. Welcome to Trade Talks. Welcome to MarketSite. Let's go around the horn here quickly. Linda, tell us about VectorVest and your passion for investing.
Yeah, VectorVest was created about 36 years ago with the end user in mind. So the average investor, we want to give them the information and the data they need to really make a difference in their portfolio returns. We tell you what to buy, and when to sell. We have created a community of investors to help each other learn from each other. And we want to help just the average everyday Joe level up. Institutional investing is a very real thing, and it's our way of combating that. But it was created to help an individual investor.
Right, and Lule, give us an overview of eToro. I mean, I've been covering you for quite some time now. I know financial literacy is a passion of yours.
Yeah, so eToro is what's called a social trading platform. So everything about the experience is based on social interaction with the 32 million users we have globally. We're in about 100 different countries. And our entire platform is designed really to help you practice investing through our virtual trading platform, and then actually put skin in the game and begin investing and be part of that community of investors to share ideas and sort of level up, as you say, to make you a better investor.
Right, and Bree, tell us about your role at State Street Global Advisors.
Sure, so we're a global asset manager, and my team does cover a wealth management client set, and that includes the clients that they serve. So for today's conversation, we're really about being the voice of that end investor to enable an experience that allows them to be included in the decision-making process and receive the information in a way that empowers them to manage their financial life.
All right, so at the beginning of the interview, it was a breakdown of the people that were there and what they do. Linda Royer, the CEO of VectorVest, talked about our ability as a company to help investors know when to buy, when to sell, and why that's so important. Lule talked about it from a social perspective with the amount of people that they have globally and a social network of being able to help their investors. But I do like in this interview, as you stated, that it was diverse, that there's a broker side of it in helping the investors have a little bit more say in the trades that they make by way of having someone at a broker's side to help them. So I liked the makeup of the interview with the three different types of companies.
Yeah, I think, like you said, diversity when it comes to this panel here. You've got VectorVest, of course, being an educational platform, the brokerage side of things, and now from her, the wealth capital side of things, you know. So I think this interview here is going to give us and the viewers here a really good, well-rounded view of how an investor needs to be prepared for the market. I'm looking forward to this.
From all three perspectives,
yes.
I am as well. Okay.
Right, and I think, Linda, the first question is when you think about investing, there's just so much to consider. So how does one get started investing in the market?
Yeah, I think it's all about deciding what their objectives are. You know, we believe that there's a few reasons for investing. One is to just create the life you want, to become financially free, to make the decisions that you want for your family, your career choices. It's a way to make sure that you have enough funds to do what you want to do. You want to secure retirement that is exactly what you want, where you want to live, what you want to do with it. And financial freedom is the reason for investing.
Yeah, and Lula, we've seen over the past 2 to 3 years, certainly through the pandemic, that companies are dedicated to democratization of finance. Have you found success there? Where do you see the industry going?
Yeah, I mean, I think we pulled forward at least 10 years of individual investor growth into pandemic period. And so it was a really huge growth rate. And what we were scared of, frankly, was that they would all go away. And not because of the business implications alone, but because investing is so important, an essential part of having assets to be able to close gaps, right? But they didn't. They stuck around and they changed their behavior slightly. They kept some of their risk profile higher, at least where we see it. I mean, our demographic is millennial or younger. They adopted options. You saw a huge run on futures on other platforms. And so the risk appetite didn't reduce after what happened. And they kept going in terms of also being long-term investors.
Right. But what we've learned, though, is those investors that came into the market during the pandemic didn't have the information or weren't as educated as they needed to be. So the social platform that eToro is putting forth is a great place for them to learn. At the same time, they need to be educated. You can't get into the market and put everything you have in there and then just expect to know what to do and when to buy and sell. You've got to have that information.
Right, because of course it's such an emotional process when you learn to invest. And Bree, this is what I think is interesting when you think about technology, even on the rise in the wealth management space, how it's reshaping the industry, but it also doesn't cut out the human either. And I think that's important when it comes to financial education and literacy and advising clients.
I would agree. It's the best of both worlds. And it's not about technology taking the place of a financial advisor. The context for what your unique path is, your situation is bespoke to you and your family. The information that exists on these different platforms is important because it provides access, which gives you the information you may be looking for. But then when you have the context from a financial advisor, that's where the guidance and the advice comes in. So the decision-making becomes this collaborative process. And I think that's where technology becomes a superpower for the financial advisor and the investor, because they can use this team-based approach to leverage the information, making it easier, more accessible, and an engaging way to have a relationship with your money.
With that being said, why are people investing? I like that Linda Royer started off with understanding it's about goals.
Yes.
And I think a lot of people jump into, especially in Lule brought in the whole COVID picture, but having the goals instead of just saying, oh, my cousin told me to go buy this stock, I'm going to go buy this stock. They made a lot of money. I'm going to make a lot of money. I think a lot of people, even during the COVID time, did not come in with having goals in place, did not come in having the education in place. So I'm going to move from the education part to what Lule said, that people jumped in because of COVID. And why? Because they had time.
Yes.
Well, they had time and they jumped in, and Lule said, well, our fear was that they were going to leave.
And they did not.
They did not. So the risk tolerances were there, but how many of them had real goals in place, which is where the education comes in. And then I'm going to jump over to what Bree said, having the guidance from a broker to give you the help, to help you to move towards what your goals were. I think the social side is one aspect of it. Mm-hmm. But I like that from a VectorVest perspective, it's more than just the social side. It is the education side. And we have seen that over the years, that's put the goals and the education together. That's what makes a well-rounded, solid investor in the stock market.
You know what that makes?
What's that?
A trading plan.
There you go.
A successful trading plan. Because, like Lule said, a lot of investors came into the stock market around COVID, ended up sticking around.
Right.
We've seen the things like the rise of cryptocurrencies.
And meme stocks.
And meme stocks, talking about their risk appetite. And going back to what Linda said, everyone just wants financial freedom. And all of these individuals that recently came into the market, most of them being younger, my generation or younger, they have that goal of financial freedom.
Mm-hmm.
They may not know exactly what that looks like, and they may not know the path to get there, but that's where companies like VectorVest, the education side of things, really can point a new investor in the right direction of knowing when to buy, what to buy, when to sell. Because when it comes down to it, no matter what you're doing in the stock market, those are the three things
Absolutely.
you got to figure out.
So I go back to what Lule said about, the people coming in, and it was a community, it was COVID, but a lot of people in that community, hearing what they wanted to hear, lost a lot of money in the market because the education wasn't paramount. It wasn't forefront. It wasn't, hey, I know that these meme stocks are moving, but do you know what these companies are worth? Are they a buy or hold or sell? Are they safe? And a lot of people weren't privy to that. They were just part of that community, part of that social space. And a lot of people lost a lot of money.
What happens, investors see all these other people
That's
making
right.
money, and they get FOMO. And they
Fear of missing out.
Yep.
For all you new people out there.
They get their tunnel vision on, let's go to the moon, let's make a lot of money, but they forget the full picture, how risky an investment is. Is it really valued at that amount? Just like what you said, the basics of the VectorVest software really is designed to point the new investor, the new trader in the right direction.
And even the older investor.
Yeah.
They need to know what, financial freedom. They need to know where they're putting their money for retirement.
Correct.
And it ain't meme stocks.
No, definitely
and maybe
not.
right now it may not always be crypto, but that's another story for another time. But if you look at the VectorVest software, I think what a lot of people in the social space for investing in the market were lacking was the education.
Yes, definitely agree.
Okay. All right, folks, let's get into the next part of the interview.
And Lily, what role does social media play as it relates to financial literacy? And are there any concerns around being a influencer and a better presenter of said information versus actually having the background? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, and I think it's always important to think of moral hazards whether it's influencers or not having enough knowledge. But something fundamental happened in the last 10 years. It wasn't just that we have fractional shares or commission free. The fundamental shift is that there's an entire generation of investors now, as I said, millennials or younger, who believe in their community, their social network, their social, who they follow, not necessarily just finfluencers, but communities that they follow, being a primary place where they get insight and a feeling of community around investing from. That is a fundamental shift from the sort of like the parental sort of advisor, customer sort of logic. And I think there's room enough for all of that, but that fundamental shift I think is not going away. The feeling of community rather than just individual expertise in terms of what
That's a great point. So you can follow, let's say, a sports star, and if they say to you, investing is so important, you need to do X, Y, Z, that in theory, through that social interaction, will perhaps spur them to.
Or more importantly, I might follow another 100 investors like me who our conversation is what actually governs what I do. And that is actually more interesting than one singular influencer.
Yeah,
it speeds up the ability to learn investing. Investing takes, as you mentioned, the emotional part of it is, even as an experienced investor, you're constantly pushing down your gut, right? Your gut's telling you to sell this stock or whatever, and you're pushing it down. Well, the opportunity for community gets you a vetting system.
Exactly.
It allows you to align yourself with other like-minded investors and learn much quicker than you would as an individual investor.
I think there's one caution, though, to that is you want to make sure, because investing is a human endeavor. So we all have bias around the type of information that we tend to lean into. So you need to have some rational with the emotionals, the EQ and the IQ, to get you the objective insight to help you make a qualified decision that is a healthy one for you. Because you can easily cultivate on your social feeds, information people, platforms that lean into what you want to hear, need to hear. And we just have to make sure that we stay a little bit closer to the middle to ensure that the information has the relevance to your situation.
What happened with GameStop a couple of years ago is a perfect example
A couple of
of
weeks
that.
ago.
Well, even, yeah. But a couple of years ago, when the Reddit craze happened with GameStop, it sent people into pandemonium. So you've got to have that objective advice. That's where VectorVest comes in.
What I love about what Linda did was bringing back to education, learning. I think that everyone who answered the question had valid points. Lule stated, community stated, and this is one thing that I differ in with what Lule said. Their platform is primarily for millennials or younger. Do you know that, and I'm just going off the top of my head, the majority of the money that's in the market ain't with the millennials and lower.
No.
I still think it's with the older crowd. And I think that those people bring a lot to the table when it comes to community. All right. And learning from those people who carry the majority of the weight within the market, money-wise, because they've got it. The millennials are lower or younger, are not quite there yet, but I think that community helps to bring them up. But it's got to be with education, not just community. And I like what Bree said. It's sort of kind of having a vetting process, because you can find community that matches what you think, and maybe what you think may not be the all in all, because
Correct.
you don't have the education behind it. You're just listening to what the people you want to hear. And Linda brought up the meme stocks. Again, it goes back to education when it comes to meme stocks. Do you know the value of that stock? Do you know if it's a safe stock? Do you know if it's going up or down? Is it fundamentally sound? So communities are great. Bree is right. You got to vet and make sure that there's some sense of a middle, but it goes back to what Linda said. It's not just the community. It is all about the education within the community. We can have community and let them tell us everything that we want to hear.
Yeah, and Bree brought up a good point of the bias of the information that you get.
Emotional bias.
Exactly. Especially since COVID, we've seen a rise or influx of influencers out there.
Absolutely. Are you an influencer?
I don't know about that influencer.
I don't know if I am either.
In the stock industry, but individuals that are new to investing, they don't know if they're getting good information.
And a lot of times, they don't know what they don't know.
Exactly. That's true for a lot of things in life, right? But then Linda responded with the Wall Street bets and the GameStop craze. Perfect example of that. Wall Street bets obviously had bias in the information when it came to GameStop. Now, I know a lot of people got lucky, probably made a lot of money.
Key word, lucky.
Lucky.
Not educated, but lucky.
But other individuals got left holding the bag or took huge losses.
A lot of them, unfortunately.
So, unfortunately, yes. And that is really why this interview is important, because it does shed the light on how important education and the right education is starting out in the investing journey.
And that's why your community, the people that you follow, the influencers, are extremely important to make sure that they're giving you the right information, that they're just not saying what you want to hear them say.
True.
So.
Now let's take a look at the next clip.
Here's the question here. What's the difference between data and information?
Data is a commodity. You can get it anywhere from any free website. It's available to you everywhere. What VectorVest does is it pulls that data in and it puts it through proprietary algorithms that then provide data that you then act on. So you want somebody who looks at book value and earnings and return on total capital. You don't want to spend your time and your days looking through that information. You want somebody who's going to say, this is a stock that is good for speculative investors, conservative investors, aggressive investors. You also want a way to create a trading plan that then takes you through. So in those drawdown moments, you're not guessing what you should be doing. You absolutely have that plan before you invest.
When I heard that, the first thing I wanted to jump up and just go, hallelujah. Because, people are investing in the stock market. People don't understand that there is a difference between data and information. Mm-hmm. And most people in the market who tend to be unsuccessful are working off of data. Mm-hmm. Oh, news came out on the stock, it went up, I'm going to go buy it. Not knowing that it was news driven. And then when it goes down, they're shocked. Oh my gosh, what just happened? So there is a difference between data and information. And Linda is right. We work on the ability that we do the work for you, you reap the rewards. We put things in a simple format to understand what your stock is worth. If it's safe, safe is key. And if it's going up or down in price, we give the information that's needed, not just have you work off of data. And Ryan said, prior to what Linda just said, having a trading plan.
Exactly. And I'm not surprised, Linda brought it back to the trading plan. Knowing the difference, or that there is a difference between
that there is a difference,
between data and information is key. Because once you get, data and turn it into solid information, going back to the previous statements about the bias and the sense of communities, like you said, it doesn't matter how big your community is if it's not the right information within that community. If you guys, if all the individuals within that community are operating off of misinformation, well, then that's going to affect their trading plans. So going back to it, that's why you want good information, which VectorVest provides, and you utilize that information for a solid, effective trading plan.
Linda brought up Reddit. Now, I'm not saying that Reddit's got misinformation, but it's got people. Hey, this happened. The stock's going to the moon. Hey, hold on. The stock may be going down, but you need to hold it because it's going to the moon. That's the difference in having data, something making the stock move, rather than having the information of, wait a minute, this company ain't making money.
Yeah.
The company's not fundamentally sound. Yeah. There's a difference, and that will affect what communities you get into, because the communities that are saying what you want to hear are the communities you're going to jump on board without having a solid foundation of education.
And a lot of people don't realize it, but individuals on YouTube will literally make stock or videos about stocks that they're holding.
Absolutely.
They're holding the bag and they're trying to convince other people to buy it, to drive up the price, to either A, get their money back, or drive the price higher and hopefully make some money.
It's called pump and dump.
Pump and dump.
But we don't do that.
No.
We have no vested interest in any of those. We're going to give you the information that Linda's talking about because that's what you need.
And that goes right to the core of the software and the algorithms that our founder, Dr. Alito, founded. I mean, this isn't biased information. This isn't news-driven. These are mathematical algorithms of the data that we get, utilize our algorithms, and then valuable and viable information is the end result that investors can use.
All right, let's go take a look at the next video clip.
I also think there's a distinction between trading and investing as well. I mean, not that it's two very different mindsets, but of course you want to think about price, you want to think about the capital that you have, you want to think about your time horizon. Trading's different than investing.
It absolutely is, and I think in that case you have goals that are in your short-term bucket and your long-term bucket. And when you think about how much liquidity do you need in the next 1 to 3 years, that can be in your short-term space. But as you think towards your longer-term goals, and all investors, whether we're talking about millennials to boomers, I'm going to bring in Gen Z into that group as well, even though it's far away for the younger end of the spectrum, retirement security is on their top goal list. So that's a longer term perspective. So they're not going to be trading quickly and in short term mindset for something that's, 40 years away. But they do have to think about a balanced and a diversified portfolio that will survive the ups and downs of markets for that long term.
Excellent statement about the inclusivity of investors, not just millennials or younger, but the boomers and the Gen Z was a very important piece of that statement, because there is a difference between investing and trading. And I think a lot of the new people that jumped in during COVID, they didn't know that.
No.
They just saw stocks moving. They saw that they were in a situation where they were without jobs, they were at home, they were looking at a means to make money. It wasn't about their short-term goals. It was, I want to get rich quick overnight. There's no denying that, because the news was coming out on these people that made a ton of money and people who look like a cat on the YouTube. And
Oh, roaring kitty.
yeah, I wasn't going to say that, but they were making a lot of money, and these people who were newcomers to the market with a little bit of money were going, well, I want to do that. And there's no goals.
Nope.
No kind of sense of, am I trading? What's my risk tolerance? Am I investing? Long term, do I hold this? None of that. So Bree bringing it back to everybody, not just the millennials or younger, which I think is a disservice. It was for everybody, because that's who makes up the market. And the millennials or younger are not the biggest piece of the puzzle.
No. Now, my take on this whole thing is, as far as trader versus investor, right? Two totally different things. Now, when you're new to the stock market, especially like people in COVID, they focused, if they did focus on this, they focused mostly on learning about stocks, the education side of stocks, the data of the stocks. They did not focus on portfolio management.
Good point.
And that is a key part of the VectorVest community. Not only do we focus on the individual stocks with all our indicators that we've discussed, but also, how do you actually manage a portfolio? Because that's two different things.
So what is VectorVest? It's a stock analysis and
portfolio management software.
There you go.
Those are the two
there,
keys.
Right there. So, but I like Bree's inclusion of everybody, not just looking at a specific segment of the market, which again, I think is a disservice. There's so much more than just you guys and younger.
Yes.
I'm Gen X. I'm not Gen Z. Maybe, I don't know. I'm not a boomer.
Are you sure you're not a boomer?
Right now, I might be having a boomer moment, but, but I don't think so. But I like, that's important. It's everybody, and we need to, whether it's information, whether it's community, it's everybody who makes up the market.
Point taken. Now let's take it to the next shot.
Are there demographics or communities, we're sitting here talking about democratization to financial access, are there underserved communities that you believe are being overlooked, and how are you looking to solve for that?
So I think that the first realm of sort of inclusion is representation, and do I see myself in the picture, right? And then the second realm is changing the data behind it, right? So that making sure there is actually inclusion in the actual data of people participating. We just did a recent study, which is really interesting, which is like 60% of any demographic. We actually did a demographic study. So we asked women, we asked people of color, different races, different ages, and 60% of them said, I see myself when I see in the mirror, an investor. That is a revolution in America. Regardless of what the data says, that is an absolute earthquake of a revolution that people are starting to see themselves. That is the first step. You cannot be what you don't see. So I think that after you do the representation, which has to persist, it has to constantly persist, is the issue of feeling that I can also invest in a way that meets my community language, my community needs, right? Community at the end of the day is identity, right? And so the more that community becomes more diverse, the more that community then speaks to many types of investors. And so that's what we're seeing, is that the breadth of community is getting more diverse, which we think will bring in even more diverse people.
I want to answer or make a point to that question from a personal perspective. Diversity, seeing yourself within the communities. I think that the market in and of itself, I think that the platforms in and of themselves, I think the major institutions in and of themselves were already in that space because that space demanded it. To be able to sit back and go, well, I want to see more of me represented, it's already being done. Is it revolutionary? I think it was something that would happen, and it did. I think the market demanded it, and it happened. Does that make me trade any differently? As I look at myself as a person of color, does that make me trade any differently? The answer to that is no. Money is going to be made with proven, time-tested systems, no matter who you are. So my perspective on that is all I'm interested in is my ability to consistently make money in the market. Whether I see a lot of me out there or not, I'm not so sure that that's the most important part of it. The most important part of it is having the community that's going to help to put me in a better position to make money, to have the education, which is going to have me better prepared to make money, and a trading plan that is going to keep me on the right side of holding on to that money. I think that the statement of the diversity, the statement of seeing me represented was going to automatically happen on its own, and it did. So I would, in that statement, I would more push towards the ability for me to make money in the market in my community of people, but more so in a platform that's going to help me no matter who I am, whether I'm a man of color or whether it's a woman of color, all of that stuff. I think that the market was automatically going to make that happen because the demand was going to make that happen. All I'm really interested in is my ability to make money.
I definitely agree with that as far as the market demanded this.
That's right.
So the brokerages and the industry had to respond accordingly.
If they were going to stay in business.
If they were going to stay
That's
in
right.
business, right? So I can definitely agree with that. And, the importance of diversity is inclusion of all ideas, new information, right? Like what we said before, what you don't know, you don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And the more ideas you got floating around in a community, whether it's a chat room or, some kind of, blog post online, bouncing ideas off each other is key to being successful. Because like you said, when it comes down to it, it's all about making money.
That's right.
If you're making money and you're helping your community make money, well, then you're helping your community.
And that's what it's all about.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it's all about. So I understand the statement, but I think that the market forces were making that happen anyway.
Totally agree.
So that's where I stand on that. So let's take a look at the next segment.
I think it's a great point that you make because, Bree, you also want to think as an advisor, what are my clients asking for? Because it's not like there's a black box and you fit everyone's strategy into that. It's really not a one-size-fits-all situation. Mm-hmm. Whether you're thinking of generational wealth, perhaps you're the first person to build wealth, perhaps mm-hmm. there's multiple generations living within your home. It does have to be customized. I would imagine clients are looking for that.
They are, and it's a unique journey to the bottom line. I mean, there are similarities. It's one of the benefits of creating a segmentation strategy, but you have to really know the individual that you're supporting and where they are on that financial journey, and that their tendencies towards their ways of engagement. So technology is a must-have for young Gen X and millennial investors, and they are looking for that in their provider's platform. Has to be a seamless part of the experience. You also have this rise of what's called a hybrid investor, where they have this duality nature of wanting the personalized advice, so they have a traditional financial advisor relationship, plus they have a relationship with a self-directed investment platform or a robo-advisor. And they like the best of both worlds because it gives them a sense of control, they feel more secure, but they enjoy and appreciate the context and they need the wealth management services that an advisor can provide as their journey grows more complex.
Interesting that Bree put that the technology was more essential for the millennials or younger. Not the boomers, not the Gen Xers. Joey gets on me a lot because he tries to help me on my computer and he's like, oh man. But you know something, that hybrid part of it, for those people who are a little older, who may not be nearly as comfortable on computer, I like that hybrid idea. Now, my broker, I don't have a personal broker that I talk to.
Because you're self-guided.
Right. But a lot of the older people have come up in the way of the market where they do have a broker that they talk to.
Well, that was a traditional
Right.
way of doing things. I mean, you used to have to call your broker to place a trade.
But they still keep that available for them, as she said, from a guidance perspective of knowing your subscriber, and that, you know, outside of just community, knowing your subscriber. Linda talked about in the beginning segment of knowing we can help the aggressive trader, the speculative, the prudent, the conservative. That's knowing your subscriber outside of just having a community. That community, you're not really honed in on your subscriber. You're just people.
Yes.
We're beyond just people. Bree is beyond, the broker side is beyond just people. VectorVest is definitely beyond just people. It's knowing your subscriber. So again, with Lule, I like the community perspective, but there's a lot more that needs to be included in that to make a well-rounded investor.
Okay. Now, in regards to, new investors and technology and platform, I've been trading since 2014. I've actually never spoken with a broker or placed an order, through a broker.
Nor have I. It's all been electronic.
It's all been electronic. And now, with the rise of like Robinhood, Webull, when these apps first started coming out, they're pretty basic in nature where you could just put in your order, option stocks, crypto. But along the way, or shortly after these apps come out, now they're focusing more on the education side, really educating their consumers or their customers. And I think, going to her point initially, the hybrid investor, right? We're at a crossroads. We're in the industry right now between self-directed and, a guided manager, portfolio manager. Now, me personally, I'm more on the self-guided side of things, just as you are.
Why? Because nobody will trade your money like you will.
No one cares about your money like
That's
you
right.
do. And that's why I feel the importance of at least learning how to do it. Now, if you're new and, most of your money or your portfolio is being directed, I get that as you're learning. But as you learn more and more and get better and better, you should probably, or at least in my opinion, allocate more to your self-directed and then have a balance between the two.
I like that idea.
And I really think that's how, the consumer might be going forward with this.
Okay.
Now let's go to the next take.
Linda, are you seeing that as well at VectorVest, developing that community in the sense of education around? I mean, there's a lot of investors who started in the middle of the pandemic, and perhaps they only saw stocks go from the bottom left to the top right. And, for all intents and purposes, we did have a period of volatility there.
Absolutely. And so community is key to that, right? So we've developed some coaching rooms where 24 hours a day, there's an opportunity for people to come into that room, talk with each other, talk about their risk reward ratios. Is it appropriate for where we're at in the marketplace? Whether the market timing guidance is appropriate for what we're seeing in the marketplace. And they love those coaching rooms. They're getting in there, they're talking to our coaches, but they're also talking with each other and allowing probably their thinking to be stretched in ways they've never had before. So they're learning quicker than ever because they have the breadth of experience from each other.
Yeah.
Now, this is a perfect example, the crossroad between technology and community.
Okay.
With VectorVest, obviously we have to adapt just like the industry has. And we have been doing that through our community rooms, as you did the Jockey Club this morning in one of those community rooms. That integration of customers, community, sharing ideas with the guidance of an educator. Because I think, if let's be honest here, if 100 people come together, doesn't mean they're coming up with the best idea.
That's true.
Right? They have to be guided, in the right direction. And I think the power of these VectorVest community rooms and these trading rooms does that in a very efficient manner.
So when you look at a coaching room, you look at a company that is not have an ulterior motive behind the stock, aka the pump and dump. We can give guidance, we can give truthful information that comes from the algorithms that the software provides. So sometimes we're going to tell you the stuff that you don't want to hear. But that's important. That should be a very important part of your community. We don't always have to agree with you. You don't always have to agree with us. But we're going to give you an unbiased look at something that you're looking at. And sometimes it's tough love. Sometimes it's, man, you maybe shouldn't be holding that stock right now based on, is it fundamentally sound? Does it have a buy, sell, or hold recommendation? Does it make money? Should it outperform the market? Is it a safe stock? Is it going up or down? All of those things, your mind may be saying, well, no, I know this is going to go up because somebody else told me that it would be. But that somebody else is telling you what you want to hear.
Because that somebody else is probably holding that stock too.
And we're not going to be afraid to tell you the things that you don't want to hear, but that may help you overall.
No, I like all your points there. Let's go ahead and take it to the next clip.
The industry is doing enough to foster that in terms of bringing the next gen advisor or the next gen of financial professionals as well as clients, because we're sitting around here and it's all women at the table having this conversation. Well, why not? Right?
Yeah,
we are, when I look in the mirror, this is what I see
Yeah.
is a professional female investor, right? So do you think the industry is doing enough or starting to do enough or making some inroads?
I think it's making inroads. I don't think it's possible to really make a big dent until we have representation.
Right.
It's just, it's not a, it can't be sort of like a, Black History Month event. It has to really be sort of how you run the business, right? Or a Pride event, right? So, and so in that sense, I feel like as long as we keep an eye towards representation, I think the rest will start having a ricochet effect on it. So I don't, when you look at sort of certain asset classes, it's made more gains just because of the people in it, right? So, you look at crypto and it's the most diverse asset class, diversely owned asset class. Whatever you might feel of crypto, it is the most diversely owned asset class in history of alternative assets in America. And why is that? Because culture and representation first led, and then other people felt comfortable coming in. And so I do think that if we keep doing that, where we have community and culture that is embracing, it will start having the difference in the numbers.
Yeah.
But I also think that the world's demanding it. So it's going to have to come to fruition. And companies that are not embracing community in investing are going to have to, because the world is changing, and our millennial generation, they want community. And so I think that the companies that don't do that will go by the way of Blockbuster. They just won't evolve.
I wholeheartedly agree with that.
I was going to say, I haven't heard that name in a while.
Interesting. Terms get thrown out, that, in my opinion, I don't think need to be thrown out. Linda put it up. The overall marketplace has demanded certain things to happen, and it's happening. But terms as I made it, I don't think need to be thrown out in regards to what the market sees. We're here to make money, no matter what, who you are, what you are. That's why education is so important. That's why community is so important. That's what's important.
Yeah, and I think, going back to the sense of community and just inclusion, diversity, I mean, look at these new platforms coming out. We've got Tasty Trade, Robinhood, Webull, eToro. Perfect example here of the industry moving in that direction. I mean, like you said, the market is demanding it. That's exactly what Linda said. I think we're all on the same page here.
Yep. Let's go to the next clip.
Even in wealth management, where there has been a stigma of, like your grandfather was the investment advisor, I think with technology, how it's transforming the space, I think that's interesting for the next gen advisor. I think that makes them more prone to look at the industry as a career, because you're not, behind a desk and doing all the admin work. You can focus on being empathetic, being a coach, focusing on the investing process.
Right, so it's a double whammy for both the advisor community and the investor community, because as investors, you have a democratized process that can invite you in, because you have a lot more choice for how you can be the investor directly. There's no more intermediary that you have to go through. But as things become more challenging, that's where the financial advisor career path or your partner in your financial life can thrive, because they're going to help provide the context that's unique to you and your situation, so you can maximize what you have to work with. And the tools from technology, whether it's a calculator, a financial planning software, that enables that organic activity that creates action that's necessary to progress. So it creates this experiential learning and this experience itself in how you can feel empowered as an individual to own your worth. And for the financial advisor, it's a deeper relationship, because there are more exchanges in different mediums for them to progress the relationship, not just the financial path.
So the whole idea goes back to the hybrid scenario of people. I still think that the crux, maybe, I don't know. I don't know what the numbers would be. I know that the older crowd has a lot more money, whether it's boomers, whether it's Gen X. They have a lot more money, and maybe they are the ones that are having more of that relational perspective with the broker. Whereas, again, I don't know what the numbers are, but the people who are investing more now, that guidance, that relational scenario, I don't think exists nearly as much.
Yes.
We both mentioned that it's more of a electronic, but at least Breeze keeping alive by way of the brokerage is that there are people who do want that relationship.
Yeah.
That the technology is there to help them. So I think it's a good point. There's not a bad point there. It's a good point. I'm just trying to keep in perspective the amount of people that are in that scenario rather than not.
No, I think it goes back to investor, trader. If you're an investor, you're more likely to have an advisor, essentially.
Okay.
If you're a trader, most likely you're self-directed. Because if you're a trader, you can't just be calling your broker all the time.
Hey, Bob, what's going on?
But if you're a trader, you're going to be self-guided, I should say, just because of the natural functionality of that. Now, going into the future, there's something that they're not talking about. AI.
Absolutely, they're not.
And how AI, I mean, we don't know how it's going to affect it yet, because
I know. I looked at my crystal ball. I know how it is.
It's in the infancy stage, but I can imagine, from now over the next 5 years, AI is really going to shape the financial community.
I agree.
Essentially, in my mind, I'm thinking, oh, I have a little Siri in my pocket that can guide me on finances.
You don't even use an iPhone.
I don't use an iPhone, but
I don't even know why you brought that up.
I was using it as an example.
Okay.
But just, AI just got here. And we're now at a position where we can actually start utilizing this in trading platforms. Like she said, was it robo trading platforms, AI algorithms. So now not only is the individual investor up against the big institutions, now they're up against AI algorithms.
I wonder how that affects everybody involved.
I'm curious.
Whether it's a trading platform, whether it's a Robinhood, or those would be the ones you would think that would start the eToros that would go into the AI space for the digital guy or gal.
And you might be onto something. They might be releasing products here soon. I haven't seen it because I use Robinhood and Webull. I have
Okay.
not seen AI directed services yet.
But
But
it
again,
is in its infancy.
it's still in its infancy,
Yeah.
and I have a feeling it's going to be on the horizon soon.
Just think about companies like VectorVest. Where would we play a role in that AI space?
And how are we going to adopt this AI technology going
Remember,
forward?
the market speaks. We have to respond at some point.
Exactly.
Right?
The market
Interesting.
demands it,
That's
right?
right.
All right.
Interesting.
Now, let's continue.
I think, Linda, the tools and the platforms that are available now, let's say, 20, 25 years ago when I first got into the business, I mean, they didn't even exist for us in the institutional desk,
No.
right? I mean, consumers just have so much choice.
Absolutely, and that's a good thing,
Mhm.
right? But even institutions now are embracing technology and giving. We've had more nurturing of our financial advisor community that subscribes to VectorVest than ever before. They're being able to load it on their business computers, where 25 years ago, I would get calls from financial advisors and they would say, how do we get VectorVest? I can't load it. I'm with Morgan Stanley. I can't load it on my computer. Now they're able to be very open to advice and technology from other companies. So it's
Because they're not stuck selling the same product, right?
absolute, or the same list of stocks or whatever. But what I love about it is it gives them the opportunity then to work with a family over multi-generations, where before, if grandpa wasn't happy, then the grandkids are going to have no hope of working with that person. Today, embracing technology, embracing a product like VectorVest for a financial advisor allows them then more time to get to know the family, get to know what they're looking at over generations, and get to know the younger people as well.
And I also think, with the magic of software and then eventually now the magic of sort of like virtual reality and other things that'll come in. So like when you log into your eToro account, you see what the insiders are doing, what the hedge funds are doing. Is there negative sentiment? What's the ESG score on something? What's the PE ratio? In like literally 2 seconds. Because the visual effect has also made it easy for you to synthesize all of that. And that's the kind of stuff in the old days. I used to be a financial advisor.